France 24 senior reporter James André has recently returned from Kyiv and from Irpin, and he joins me now here in the studio. James, you were in Ukraine for about 2 weeks. Just tell us a little bit about how the situation in the capital changed in the time you were there.
Well, it changed quite a bit. I must admit, this news for the people of Kyiv is very good news, because Irpin is only about 15 kilometers outside of Kyiv, and it's a part of the suburb that everybody was watching when we were there. Now, we really went from a ghost city when we arrived in Kyiv to a little bit more life by the time we were leaving. It was very interesting to see. What happened was, when we arrived, the streets were pretty much deserted, or businesses were closed. It was actually difficult to find something for lunch. I mean, we were out and about filming in the day, and you stop and there's absolutely nothing. Now, we'll have a couple of shops open. And then as the couple of weeks just spanned out, we did find cafes reopening, people coming out again. It was interesting. For example, we went to the railway station. There were 2 women selling coffee there in a little booth. And we said, so when did you reopen? They said, well, we reopened today, and it's a little miracle. We're really happy to be back. And I asked them, well, aren't you afraid? And they said, well, not really, because, you know, the thing is, we have artillery shells falling in Kiev sporadically. The risk is the same here as it is at home. For a fact. So what we did see is people who'd gone underground or left the city, at least coming out of underground shelters, and now there are reports of people returning to the city. So yes, Kiev's atmosphere has changed, and Irpin obviously was while we were there, we were heard that there were operations by the Ukrainian military. Then we were told that some areas had been retaken by the Russians. Very difficult to independently verify. As you know, there were some journalists killed in Irpin, so the army just locked it down. It was impossible to get there for quite a long period while we were there. So there we are. But yeah, everybody watching what's going around. Going around the city, and also watching, of course, what's happening inside with these shells falling sporadically.
So some tentative signs of a resumption of normal life in parts of Kyiv you're witnessing there, James. I know you wanted to talk about some of the solidarity you saw in the city. What do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean is that what we saw is people taking initiatives to try and defend the country by all means. So we did see, we met, you know, as we were reporting, we met, for example, this man who manufactures paint, who had a company of 70 people, who indeed decided to, I mean, a lot of his employees had fled, but with the ones left, he decided to start making bulletproof vests to give them out to the volunteers and to the soldiers who were not equipped on the front lines. So, you know, that kind of initiative, but also friends of his taking care of logistics, just, you know, making sure the international aid that was coming in. So we saw boxes of medicine coming from Germany, from Italy, that were being dispatched. We were using his warehouses to stock them. And also, I'd say just global solidarity. For example, we visited a school where they'd, you know, arranged the basement as a bomb shelter, where people were being taken in from Irpin, from Bovary, from these areas which were under fire, and where we saw, well, you know, the leader usually cooks lunch for the kids, cooking meals for these people, and also another example, a supermarket. We went to a supermarket. Inside that supermarket, well, there were products, but a lot of the employees had fled. So volunteers were coming in, working for free in order to get the supermarket working. And the head of that supermarket, a woman, very brave woman, saying, look, you know, my job is to make sure this food is available to the people of Kyiv, or there'll be nothing to eat. So I have a mission here, and I want my supermarket to be running. So you see a lot of bravery and solidarity, which is obviously, I'd say, this coming together of the Ukrainian people. And I just add one thing, is that they're all speaking Ukrainian, because a lot of Ukrainians are bilingual between the Russian and the Ukrainian, and now people, even whose mother tongue is more Russian, making an effort. That was the case, for example, of this paint manufacturer, who were making an effort to speak Ukrainian despite their accent, just to show what side they stand on.
That's extremely interesting, James. And of course, some of those civilians are also directly taking up arms themselves.
Absolutely. We went to a training. We had the opportunity to see these people train for battle, and a lot of them will actually be sent, of course, to the front lines. And you know, they're getting organized. A lot of the people we spoke to, it was that day, a lot of them had never held an assault rifle in their lives. One of them was, for example, a lawyer. Now, we asked asked him one question, because when you enroll, they were actually ready to sign their papers, to sign themselves into these territorial brigades. Now, they sign in for 3 years or till the end of the war. And he was explaining to us that indeed you stop being a civilian and you become a fighter, which means that your actual status changes and you become a legitimate target for the Russian army, which is quite a step to take as a civilian if you were a lawyer or a truck driver or whatever. And indeed, they were telling us that they feel that anyway, the Russian army is targeting everybody, so it doesn't really make a difference. So they decided, to be brave and to fight for their country. So all that is, quite nice to see a people rising in the face of invasion.
Fascinating stories. Thanks very much indeed. James André there, just back from the Ukrainian capital, Kyiv.